Some faces, the moment they appear on screen, carry with them a sense of calm. Helen Hunt is one of those, gentle, composed, with a plain-spoken grace that made American audiences see her as the woman next door in Mad About You or the wounded mother in As Good as It Gets. Yet behind that slender frame and tender smile lies a journey filled with fractures only those who truly pause to notice can perceive. It is the story of a child stepping into the spotlight at the age of 8, trading her childhood far too early to become a working actress. Of a woman who once held the Oscar in her hands, only to face Hollywood's unforgiving stagnation right after. Of a single mother who willingly walked away from blockbusters to preserve peace for her daughter. And of a soul weathered by divorce and years weighed down by silent pressures. Pressures that fame did nothing to ease. What stops people in their tracks is precisely this paradox. How could such a serene face be forged through so many storms? How could a woman who once made America laugh carry within her so many hidden shards? The story of Helen Hunt is not a heroic anthem of glory. It is the chronicle of quiet endurance, of a heart that keeps finding ways to stand steady amid upheaval, without noise, without justification. And it is that silence, heavy with meaning, which has made her life journey more haunting, wrenching, and unforgettable than any role she has ever played. To understand the storms that forged the calm within Helen Hunt, we must return to the beginning, to a time when young Helen Elizabeth Hunt entered life not through backyard games, but through the command action echoing across a film set. Helen Hunt was born on June 15, 1963 in Culver City, California, into a family where art was not merely present on a desk, but woven into every rhythm of daily life. Her father, Gordon Hunt, was a respected director and acting coach in American television, as well as a longtime voice director for major animation studios. He worked with the precision of someone who understood every nuance of expression, and that spirit seeped naturally into their small home. Her mother, Jane Elizabeth Novis, a photographer, saw the world through light and subtle movement, adding another layer of sensitivity to the environment in which Helen grew up. In that atmosphere, a child like Helen didn't just hear about art, she lived inside it. Evenings when her father brought scripts home, moments when her mother adjusted a beam of light just to capture the right instant, days spent following her father onto film sets and standing silently in a corner to observe, all of it gradually formed a language Helen absorbed as naturally as breathing. No one told her she had to enter the profession, yet it was nearly impossible to grow up surrounded by conversations about acting, expression, and the rhythm of a scene without feeling its pull. Amid those small footsteps beside her father in studio corridors, Helen began to understand that this was a world where emotions were listened to, where stories were created through both discipline and instinct. That creative environment quietly laid the first stones for an artistic journey that would stretch on for more than half a century. A journey Helen entered not through pressure or ambition, but through a sense of belonging, as though it had always been waiting for her to arrive. By accompanying her father to film sets, Helen became familiar with the click of the camera and the harsh lights bright enough to make her squint whenever they swept across her face. That world, where adults spoke softly but acted with precision, gradually became the natural landscape of her childhood. So when Helen first stood in front of the camera, everything unfolded as smoothly as the next step in life. No declaration of career choice, no dramatic moment of decision, just a little girl who had lived long enough in that world to know she belonged to it. In 1973, at the age of 10, Helen appeared in Pioneer Woman, a television film portraying the lives of frontier women. The role wasn't large, but it placed her inside the true machinery of a working set. Makeshift wooden houses, electric cables feeding lights so hot they made the air tremble. Crew members moving soundlessly to adjust each prop and angle so it matched the previous shot. No one spoke unless it was necessary. That near-absolute focus created an invisible discipline Helen absorbed entirely through a child's intuition. In that space, she learned her first lessons of the craft: how to stand still for the light, how to wait her turn, how to keep rhythm so she wouldn't break the flow of a scene. And most importantly, she realized that time on a set did not move like time in the real world. It was carved into pieces by sharp calls of action and cut, by stillness so complete you could hear a breath. From pioneer woman, the path began to reveal itself. Helen consistently took supporting roles in children's shows, television series, and sitcoms. None of the parts were big enough to bring her fame, but each taught her how to observe, how to hold emotion, how to work as part of a collective. That period forged her professional discipline, the very foundation of Helen Hunt's later acting style: calm, precise, and profoundly layered. From those quiet early years, an artistic journey more than half a century long began taking shape, not through bursts of glory, but through small, steady, resilient steps. The seemingly modest roles of her early career accumulated into an inner strength, giving Helen the foundation to later reach heights few could imagine for a former child actress who started in television. Once accustomed to the pace of filming, the strict discipline of the set, and the collaborative mechanics of professional crews, Helen immersed herself deeper into the world of television, where every opportunity, no matter how small, could open a new path. The first opportunity that truly defined her arrived in the mid-1970s. At just 13 years old, Helen was entrusted with a major role in The Swiss Family Robinson, 1975 to 1976, an adventure series based on the classic novel about a family surviving on a deserted island. Unlike her previous fleeting appearances, this time she was an indispensable part of the main cast, playing the daughter who must adapt to harsh nature, face dangers, and learn to live in the wild. It was a formidable challenge for a young actor. For months, Helen worked on outdoor sets, running across scorching sand, wading through man-made streams, climbing structures designed to resemble cliffs, or moving constantly through artificial forests. Every scene had to be repeated multiple times to get the right angles, lighting, and performance rhythm, demanding endurance and focus few children her age could maintain. The tight shooting schedule made her daily routine vastly different from her peers, starting at dawn to prepare, filming through midday, and continuing until late afternoon. Through this, Helen learned the discipline of television: to hit marks precisely, to wait on cue, to preserve emotional consistency even when scenes were filmed hours apart. During those relentless days, Helen's signature acting style began to emerge. Natural, subtle, unforced, relying more on truthful reactions and expressive eyes than on exaggerated gestures. Directors and co-stars gradually noticed her rare talent, the ability to sustain emotional continuity throughout a scene, untouched by the rush or tension that hovered over the set. The Swiss Family Robinson did not make Helen an overnight sensation, but it marked the moment the industry began to take her seriously. No longer just a child actor scattered across minor episodes, Helen was now seen as someone capable of carrying extended roles, maintaining emotional rhythm, and working with the rigor of a seasoned professional. A career door that once stood slightly ajar now opened wider, not with fanfare, but unmistakably, in a way only insiders could truly discern. When the Robinson project ended, Helen entered a crucial transition of adolescence, a stage where persistence and professional awareness replaced early excitement. Instead of taking a break or reclaiming a child's life, She plunged straight into the relentless production cycle of late 1970s American television, where every opportunity carried the pressure of proving oneself episode by episode. From 1977 to 1979, Helen appeared in widely viewed series such as The Bionic Woman, Mary Hartman, and The Facts of Life. These roles were not the narrative centerpieces, yet each production posed a different test. The ability to quickly adapt to distinct tonal styles, the skill to grasp a character in a short amount of time, the precision required in dialogue scenes, and the dependable work ethic of a young actress already accustomed to high-intensity environments. During this period, Helen had a new project nearly every year. Each part lasted only a few episodes, but together they fortified her foundational skills, maintaining emotional equilibrium through dense shooting schedules, integrating seamlessly with constantly changing crews, and understanding that television moved at a pace only absolute diligence could match. It was within these seemingly minor roles that Helen began cultivating a quiet reputation. A young performer who worked seriously, caused no trouble, and always delivered exactly what was required. A rarity at her age. The late 1970s may not have brought Helen stardom, but they quietly gave her something far more valuable. A foundation few young actors of her generation possessed. This was a period of relentless apprenticeship, where every small role, every day under the lights, contributed to her resilience and discipline, qualities that would become the launching pad for the long career ahead. As this phase closed, Helen stepped into a new threshold of adolescence, where every actor who grows up on screen must confront their greatest test, maturing in full view of the audience. She was no longer the little girl running across family-friendly sets. She was becoming a face expected to prove she could transcend the child star label, a mold Hollywood was always too eager to impose. In the early 1980s, Helen took on a variety of film and television projects, not in pursuit of instant fame, but to expand her emotional range. Each character, even those appearing only briefly, helped her explore more mature forms of expression, teaching her restraint, letting her refine a gaze or a breath instead of relying on youthful spontaneity. A crucial pivot emerged when Helen joined the sitcom It Takes Two in 1982. For the first time, she embodied a young woman grappling with real-life conflicts, family expectations, adolescent emotions, and the first collisions of adulthood. The role didn't transform her into an overnight star, but it confirmed something essential. Helen Hunt had officially crossed the border of childhood and become a young actress capable of carrying deeper emotional weight. She was no longer a fleeting young face scattered across episodic appearances. This was the moment she embarked on the hardest journey for those who grow up on camera, discovering her true voice before the lens. It wasn't a loud race for attention, but a quiet process of observing, experimenting, and calibrating. A path only the steadfast could pursue to the end. Each small role became a silent fragment, helping Helen discern where she wanted to stand, what stories she wanted to tell, and what she wished audiences to see in her. She began shaping an acting style that was natural, nuanced, and quietly powerful, the very style that would define Helen Hunt for decades to come. After It Takes Two, Helen stepped into the mid-1980s with the mindset of an actress searching for a new position on the cinematic landscape. She was no longer the familiar child face of television, yet she had not become a name capable of leading a film. It was an in-between period, a space where a young actress had to cling to every opportunity to prove she could do more than what her past had defined for her. From 1983 to 1987, Helen appeared steadily in feature films and TV movies, a quiet yet determined phase of transition. Quarterback Princess, 1983, became a defining milestone, not only because the role demanded greater emotional presence, but because it marked Helen's first steps out of television's safety net and into narratives that were broader, more dramatic, and more demanding. In the following years, she participated in Girls Just Want to Have Fun, 1985, Peggy Sue Got Married, 1986, and Project X, 1987. These were not roles designed to create stardom, but they were crucial trials by fire, allowing Helen to adjust to the tempo and rigor of film production, a world where even the smallest detail could determine the clarity of a character. Despite her growing presence on the big screen, Helen remained confined to brief supporting roles, fleeting moments that audiences often barely remembered. Yet it was within those modest positions that she learned what no overnight sensation ever truly grasps. A career is not built on luck, but on the ability to observe, empathize, and remain steadfast before the camera even when no one calls your name. Each few minutes of footage, each seemingly insignificant line of dialogue became an exercise for an actress quietly sharpening her craft, testing how to control her gaze, find the right breath, and listen intently to her scene partners. All of it accumulated into an inner force that at the time, no one realized was growing inside Helen. By the late 1980s, Helen Hunt was an actress fully matured, yet still hovering at the margins of the spotlight. She moved tirelessly across sets, appeared in all kinds of genres, visible one moment and gone the next like a passing breeze. But that persistence resembled a search, Helen trying every tiny key the profession handed her, until finally one door truly meant for her opened at last. And that door bore the name Mad About You. While many actors who started young found themselves stalled, unable to reinvent their screen identity, Helen walked into an audition for a modest NBC sitcom, a story about marriage, everyday life, and the subtle frictions most comedies avoided. The role of Jamie Buckman required intelligence, sensitivity, and a naturalness so effortless it was almost impossible to perform. Helen didn't try to become Jamie. She entered the scene as if she had known the character all her life. When she read opposite Paul Reiser, the chemistry between them ignited instantly, an intuitive rhythm that silenced the room because everyone understood. This was the couple the show was waiting for. The role was hers after a single audition. In 1992, Jamie Buckman catapulted Helen's career onto an entirely different trajectory. For the first time, she had a character spacious enough to inhabit, delicate enough to reveal emotions that, for over 20 years, had only flickered briefly in minor roles. The magic lay in the simplicity. Helen didn't try to be funny. She allowed Jamie's daily rhythms to generate laughter on their own. She didn't push for emotional weight. A quiet, truthful pause was enough for the audience to feel the character's pain. Mad About You became an American cultural phenomenon. From 1994 to 1999, Helen won 4 consecutive Emmy Awards, along with multiple Golden Globes and SAG Awards, an achievement so rare that American television still recalls it with reverence. Jamie Buckman didn't just free Helen Hunt from the narrow orbit of supporting roles, she placed her where her subtlety could shine fully. The character became an emblem of the 1990s urban woman, intelligent yet vulnerable, strong yet unguardedly human. When Helen returned for the 2019 reboot, it wasn't reprising a role, it was revisiting a part of herself that had matured alongside her. Jamie's influence opened doors cinema had never previously opened for her. In 1996, Twister became that threshold. As Jo Harding, a woman haunted by tornadoes she was compelled to chase, Helen hurled herself into grueling outdoor sequences filled with sandstorms and blistering winds, even sustaining injuries before filming officially began. But those physical collisions made her character vividly real, and Twister unexpectedly became one of the year's biggest blockbusters. After that, no one saw Helen Hunt as a TV star lucky enough to cross into film. She had become a box office anchor. In 1997, Helen went further, toward a place few actors ever reach. Her portrayal of Carol Connolly in As Good as It Gets was a symphony of softness and hidden sorrow, a woman crushed by the daily anxiety of caring for her sick son, yet still carrying flickers of kindness and hope. Helen's acting wasn't showy. It seeped into the audience like ink spreading on wet paper. A single glance, a breath, was enough to communicate the weight of Carol's soul. Standing beside Jack Nicholson, Helen wasn't overshadowed. She became the emotional counterweight that held the entire story in balance. Hollywood responded with unequivocal recognition: the Academy Award, the Golden Globe, the SAG Award, an extraordinary triple win achieved by only a select few in history. But the silver screen's glow cast shadows of its own. Helen later admitted that the post-Oscar spotlight filled her with growing anxiety. Every script she received made her question whether the role was worthy. And every public appearance carried the unsettling feeling of being scrutinized. Her triumphs, instead of offering solid ground, often made her feel as though she was standing on something fragile. Caught between blazing success and invisible pressure, Helen Hunt entered the most prolific period of her career, one in which she proved she was not merely an Oscar winner, but a resilient, deeply rooted artist whose inner life was more layered than any character she ever portrayed. The year 2000 arrived like a second wave, equally radiant, but in a different tone. Calmer, more mature, and sharply defining Helen's place in cinema. She appeared in 3 major films back-to-back, each one demanding a distinct persona and emotional register. What Women Want cast her as Darcy Maguire, a smart, resolute woman navigating the ruthless world of advertising. Cast Away gave her the role of Kelly, a woman forced to live with a grief that could never be fully spoken. Though her screen time was limited, the emotional impact was unmistakable. In Pay It Forward, Helen became Arlene McKinney, a single mother scarred by a broken past, a role requiring such raw honesty that audiences sometimes forgot they were watching an actress at all. 3 films in 1 year, each with its own tone, each a different slice of human experience. Together they proved that Helen was no byproduct of Mad About You or an Oscar afterglow, but an actress capable of spanning emotional spectrums. Strong and vulnerable, comedic and shattered, luminous and bruised. The years 1996 to 2000 marked the most brilliant peak of Helen Hunt's career. She crossed from television into cinema with leading roles, claimed the Academy Award, shaped box office hits, and endured the crushing weight of fame all at once. These were the years when Helen shone the brightest and struggled the most, and the years that carved out the steadfast, introspective, artistic path she would follow for the rest of her life. Yet every Hollywood spotlight, no matter how dazzling, eventually dims. After 2000, while applause for As Good as It Gets, Twister, and Cast Away still echoed, Helen Hunt stepped into a different terrain of her career, one without bombastic projects or relentless momentum, but a quiet plateau after the summit. Not because she ran out of choices, but because Hollywood itself had shifted. Roles for women over 40 became scarce, and the pile of scripts on her desk grew thinner. Helen later said she felt that shift keenly. After a breathless sprint, the sudden slowdown was like someone turning down the dimmer on the stage lights. But rather than cling to fading glory, she chose a different path, a path of agency, where she would decide which stories to tell instead of performing the ones others expected of her. In the early 2000s, Helen Hunt returned to a gentler rhythm, fewer commercial films, more selective choices, and even stretches of time when she vanished from the big screen entirely. Yet that disappearance became the groundwork for an important shift. In 2007, she re-emerged with Then She Found Me, not only as its star, but also as director and co-writer. It was her first time behind the camera for a feature film telling a story of heartbreak, rediscovery, and the fragile ties that bind a family together. The film wasn't flashy, but it was singular, raw, refined, and distinctly Helen, born from a woman who had lived through glory, loss, and quiet resurrections. From 2008 to 2011, she gravitated toward independent projects, TV movies, and deeply human narratives. Helen no longer chased roles that dominated the box office. She sought characters that stirred her soul. The figures of this period were often small, grounded, tinged with sorrow and layered with emotions only an actress who had weathered life's transformations could fully express. The post-Oscar years were not Helen Hunt's decline. They were an interlude in which brilliance gave way to a deeper question. After reaching the summit, what story is left to tell? And it was precisely when Helen stepped away from the noise of blockbusters that a new path opened. Quiet yet steady, leading her toward the identity of a true artist rather than a mere star. After several years behind the camera reclaiming her own rhythm, Helen returned, not with grand projects, but with a role so unassuming it was almost strange. Small, yes, but powerful enough to halt critics in their tracks. The sessions had no spectacle, no box office sheen. It had only people, raw, damaged, and achingly human. As Cheryl Cohen Green, Helen infused every gesture with a weary tenderness, the kind that comes from someone who understands that sometimes touching another person is harder than touching oneself. The role brought her back into the Oscar race, not through noise, but through depth, so resonant audiences had no choice but to pay attention. This Helen didn't merely want to act. She wanted to tell stories in her own voice, and the answer to that longing took shape in Ride 2014. The film felt like a journal made visible, honest, unvarnished, steeped in the shadows of motherhood and the seasons when adults must relearn how to stand. Ride did not pursue glossy structure. It was a quiet conversation Helen wrote for herself, as a mother, as an artist, as someone learning to accept change. At this midpoint of her career, many actors slow down out of exhaustion or cling to past glories for fear of fading away. Helen did neither. She didn't stop, nor did she chase the spotlight. She chose to move sideways, to embrace small roles that were truthful, to tell stories that didn't need volume to cut deep. From World on Fire, where she embodied a woman living amid the ruins of war, to The Night Clerk and Blind Spotting, Helen's characters shared one defining trait. They lived at the edges of life's great upheavals, held their composure as an act of survival, and treated the world with a quiet kindness few dared to notice. Helen Hunt no longer lived at Hollywood's pace. She chose the rhythm of her own soul, slower but deeper. Less frequent appearances, but always at the right moment. She spoke through small roles that echoed longer than any marketing campaign ever could. In parallel, she continued directing, continued writing, continued affirming her belief that art is not a race for visibility, but a journey to find one's own voice. In recent years, Helen Hunt has stopped pursuing a return to the peak. She simply wants to keep working with the honesty she has carried her entire life. And that choice has become the most beautiful part of her later career. This is not a decline, but another form of maturity, quiet, profound, and more resilient than ever. After decades of blazing across screens, television and cinema alike, Helen Hunt's private life moved to a very different tempo, quieter, more fragile, and so inward that even she sometimes found it difficult to articulate. If the stage lights made audiences see Helen as calm, intelligent, and steady, then the life behind those lights revealed fractures only someone who has loved deeply and lost deeply could ever understand. In the spotlight, Helen was a star. In the shadows, she was simply a woman trying to hold herself together through life's unrelenting blows. Love came to Helen not in Hollywood's grand fashion, but in the quiet recognition of two sensitive souls noticing each other in a crowded room. Helen and Hank Azaria had known each other before, but they entered each other's lives at a time when both careers were stretched taut, exactly when Mad About You was exploding into a cultural phenomenon. There was no dramatic fated moment to recount later. They simply found in each other a rare softness, a sense of being understood in an industry that demanded constant strength. Hank's intelligence and gentle humor made Helen feel seen, not as an actress, but as a person exhausted from trying to maintain balance between work and inner life. Their love grew from small things: the silent calm they shared before a performance, or the unspoken understanding of the hidden fears their profession carried. They married in 1999, surrounded by friends and colleagues' blessings. But sometimes, two souls that feel too much struggle to walk together for long. Work pressures, public expectations, and the instability inherent in acting slowly pushed them off each other's orbit. Just over a year after the wedding, the love ended. No explosive arguments, no scandals. Just two people who once loved fiercely, yet could not find a safe place for their hearts in a world that suddenly felt too narrow. For Helen, that brief marriage left behind a hollow space, an unnamed ache resting quietly at the bottom of her soul, ushering her into the next stage of life with the caution of someone who already knows what loss tastes like. Matthew Carnahan entered Helen's life like a gentle hand, resting on the shoulder of someone who had just walked through a cold rain. He was not a face associated with Hollywood's glitter, and perhaps that was precisely why this love took root so deeply. They began their relationship in 2001, quietly, without displays or spectacle. Their love unfolded in a space Helen had never experienced before, calm, discreet, almost deliberately hidden from the outside world. Together, they built a family life untouched by the chaos of show business, as if both understood that happiness survives only when shielded from external noise. In 2004, their daughter, McKenna Leigh, was born. It was a sacred moment, a turning point that shifted the entire meaning of Helen's existence. She has said many times that motherhood became her greatest priority, the thing that made her willing to turn down projects that could have pushed her back toward a brighter spotlight. Helen stepped into a role no film could ever match, the role of a mother. From the moment she held McKenna in her arms, Helen became softer, slower. She moved away from blockbusters, refused roles that would keep her on red carpets, simply so she could spend mornings taking her daughter to school and afternoons waiting for her to come home. She chose to act less, work less, and live more. As the mother she always wanted to be but had never seen modeled in her own childhood. But even the deepest loves eventually reach their limits. After 16 years together, Helen and Matthew separated in 2017. There were no accusations, no scandals for the tabloids to excavate. Just two people who had once been profoundly intertwined and could no longer find the same rhythm to continue. To the public, it was a passing headline. To Helen, it was a silent earthquake, a wound without blood, yet one that cost her another piece of the peace she had tried so gently and patiently to protect. Those who paid close attention could see the shift in Helen's artistic choices during that time. She began taking roles imbued with loneliness and loss. Women standing at the edge of life's storms, holding on to kindness in silence. It wasn't a reenactment of her reality, but rather the echo of what she had just survived. Helen's life did not stop at emotional pain. On October 16, 2019, she faced a moment that turned her world upside down, literally. Her SUV was struck from the side and flipped in the middle of an intersection. Rescuers had to pry open the vehicle to pull her out. Helen was rushed to the hospital with injuries to her head and back, areas the body can heal from, but the mind often carries long afterward. The image of Helen on a stretcher, stunned under the glare of emergency lights, reminded everyone that behind the Oscar statue was a 56-year-old woman still subject to fate's fragility. The accident didn't just hurt her physically, it carved a brutal truth into her life. In a single moment, everything can change forever. Helen recovered fully. After the accident, she slowed down, in the most beautiful sense of the word. She spent more time with Makina, with small projects rich in personal meaning, with roles that didn't need a $100 million box office, but only required a truthful heart. She no longer sought the summit, no longer felt the need to prove anything to Hollywood or to herself. Perhaps the accident taught Helen that life cannot be controlled like a scene on set, that not every pain can be reshot, and that not every loss can be rewritten in the script. Looking back on Helen Hunt's artistic journey, one thing becomes unmistakably clear. Her silence speaks louder than the noise Hollywood often manufactures. Helen has never been the kind of actor who needs grand gestures to be remembered. Instead, she chose to exist through depth, something only those who have lived much, endured much, and understood much can bring to the screen. Mad About You may have placed her before millions of viewers, but it was never fame that made audiences love Helen. It was the sensation that when she entered the frame, even the smallest details of life, a sigh, a seemingly casual line, carried weight. Viewers felt they were looking at someone real, someone close, as if this woman could be sitting next to them in a tiny New York kitchen. That truthfulness became even more evident in As Good as It Gets. In Carol Connolly, Helen didn't perform a role. She compelled the audience to believe that woman existed beyond the camera, exhausted by long days, resilient to the point of resignation, and holding on to a fragile hope that surfaced only in rare moments. There was no technical exhibition there, only life. And it was precisely that simplicity that led her to the Oscar. What is most memorable about Helen does not lie in awards. It lies in her unwavering devotion to what truly moves her. Ordinary lives, delicate relationships, people who seem small but contain entire worlds within them. Whether she is acting, directing, or writing, her work carries the same rhythm. Light yet profound. Slow yet enduring, devoid of theatrics yet powerful enough to make the viewer pause before the complexities of real life. Even as Hollywood shifts, even as the era of 1990s sitcoms fades, even as she appears less frequently than before, Helen occupies a space no one else can claim. Not because she triumphed on grand stages, but because she proved that acting, when done with sincerity, can reach places no special effects or fame ever could. No labels, no enumerations, no slogans needed. Helen Hunt's influence does not come from volume, but from the way she makes people feel the truth of life, quietly, yet lastingly. After a long career that left its mark on both television and film, Helen Hunt's present life takes on a different kind of calm. Not the silence of someone fading from the spotlight, but the steadiness of someone who finally understands what truly matters. Helen lives in Los Angeles, close enough to her work, yet far enough to give her family a safe distance from Hollywood's relentless churn. She continues to act, to direct, to write, but she no longer chooses projects for their scale or market ambition. Instead, she gravitates toward emotionally resonant stories, independent productions, and television opportunities that allow her to practice her craft with honesty. In her rare conversations with the press, Helen avoids dwelling on past achievements or the pressures she once faced. She emphasizes something far simpler. Her top priority is family, especially her daughter, and a life in which work, art, and the people she loves can coexist without suffocating one another. Still working, still creating, but with a clarity forged through countless upheavals, the Helen Hunt of today carries a quiet beauty. Not because she has withdrawn, but because she has grown enough to decide how she wants to exist in the years ahead. When we retrace her path, we do not see a straight line climbing toward a peak, as is often expected of Hollywood stars. Helen's story resembles a river with many branches, marked by pauses, ruptures, and turns that surprise those who follow it. Yet every detour, every halt, every onward step came from choices she made herself. Sometimes bold, sometimes cautious, but always true to the artist she has been all along. What keeps Helen Hunt alive in the audience's memory is not the number of awards she's received, but the way she moved through every upheaval. The detours that should have stalled her career, the private losses no one saw, the falls that might have stopped others entirely, but never her. Helen preserved kindness and sincerity in every choice she made, as if art had never been a stage for glory, but the only way she knew to touch life and people with honesty. In a Hollywood obsessed with spectacle and noise, Helen Hunt never tried to shout louder. She simply stood where she felt she belonged, with roles rich in depth, stories full of meaning, and a home warm enough to return to after each project. That beauty, not ostentatious, not everlasting, has proven more enduring than any spotlight. The beauty of a life not perfect, but real, marked by moments of pain, patience, love, and a peace she carved out for herself. Helen Hunt does not conclude her journey with applause, echoing through a theater, but with the quiet weight of someone who has finally understood the most precious truth of artistry: to live honestly, and to let every choice, no matter how small or silent, become a piece that reflects who she truly is. If Helen Hunt's journey has touched your heart, leave her a message below. Every word you share helps this story live one more time. And if you wish to continue discovering the beautiful lives and hidden sorrows behind the spotlight, don't forget to subscribe to the channel.